Good morning, grade 11s, and welcome to the first lesson for 2021. We're looking at basically the influences of the different business environments. And really what this chapter does, or what this video will do, is recap what you already know from last year. So I'm going to start off with my three circles, the three different environments. You've got your macro environment, which is your biggest environment, which puts a lot of pressure and forces businesses to change the way they do things. So you have no control over that environment. Then you have the market environment, which is the green one. That is the one that the business interacts with on a daily basis. So you have some control. You can influence their behavior by changing the way you market to your customers, by lowering your prices so that you're cheaper than your competitors. So your market environment has got your consumers, your suppliers, your competitors, your intermediaries, your trade unions, your CBOs, and so forth. The littlest one is the microenvironment. That is the business itself. You have full control over the way that you manage and you run that business. You need to adapt to the influences from these two other external environments. So the microenvironment is the internal environment. That's a very brief overview. We're now going to go into a little bit more detail under each one. As I said previously, it's the first bit of work that we're going to do in grade 11. Let's look at the next slide. Remember, business can't function in isolation. It needs other environments. It's a dynamic environment because things change all the time, right? So what are the components in the microenvironment? That is the mission statement, the objectives, the management structure, the different resources that the business has in order to operate, and lastly, that organizational culture, that identity that that business has. So on the next slide, I've got some examples of mission and objectives. So here is the mission statement according to Apple, right? And Apple really was, their biggest mission was to be the best personal computers in the world. And I think they really have done that. I like Nestle's one. I think it's quite an interesting one. It says, Nestle is the world's leading nutrition, health, and wellness company. Our mission of good food, good life is to provide consumers with the best tasting, most nutritious choices in a wide range of food and beverage categories and eating occasions from morning to night. Now, if you go onto YouTube or if you Google, you'll find lots of examples of vision and mission statements. So what are the key elements in a mission statement? It's about what is the product, who are your customers, how are you going to deliver it. It's like the roadmap for that mission statement. The vision, remember, is where you see yourself in the future. Your objectives, these are clearly defined targets. And in order to get to that target, to get to that objective, you must have proper planning in place. Right, we're now going to look at management structures. So who is the head of who? This is quite a complex one. You can see that it's a school one, there's a governing body, then there's a headmaster, and then there are all the deputies underneath them. Okay? So what a management structure does is it's a hierarchy. It gives you a framework for who is responsible to who reports to who. If we look at the examples of organizational structures, these are the ones that you would need to know. You get a flat, a functional, a matrix, a product, or a geographical one. And I've just put some examples up here. This is a geographical one because you can see you have the chief executive officer, but then it's split up into different regions, different countries. So it's Europe, Asia, Africa. So we would call this a geographical structure. If you look at this one, it's a functional structure because it's divided up into the different business functions. There's production function, marketing function, HR, and information. There's another example, also a very flat structure, okay? There are only a few managers and lots of workers underneath. So there's not much room or scope for growth in that structure. If we look at this matrix one, it basically is about having different projects that are running, and you take people from the different functions. So you'll take someone from manufacturing, you'll take someone from sales, from finance and HR, right? And here's the program manager with all the different projects. Now here, you're not taking them from different functions. They belong to this project. So let's say they will deal only with nutritional ingredients and trying to do research. Project B will look at developing a new food thing. Project C will always look at developing new recipe books. I'm going along the line of food. Right. This one is, I've used Checkers as an example, but what happens here is you have a plant manager, then you have a meat manager who looks after people who are working for him in the meat department. You have produce manager, that is your fruit and veg, and then you have people under that one. So this one is according to the products that you are selling. Right, if we look at resources, there are 4 different resources that a business has. It has the physical resources, those are the assets, the things that you can touch, the machines, the equipment, the vehicles, the stock. The financial resources is how much money do they have available to them to grow the business. So that's in terms of capital, or can they get access to loans. HR, that's about the people, the staff, the employees. And information resources, this is about all your IT, all your electronic and your networking things that you need in the business. Right, and then the culture of the business, as I said earlier, is the identity. And this has really come about through the shared values and the beliefs that that business, that organization has. Right, so moving on to the next environment, which is the market environment, right? This is where the business has limited control, or sometimes we say partial control. So the business has to adapt to the challenges that are existing in the market environment. I always use the example of bell-bottom jeans, okay? Those were a thing in the 60s, and then when fashion changed, businesses had to adapt their fashion so that they could sell more products, or they came up with the skinny jeans. I can't wait for skinny jeans to go out of fashion and big baggy ones to come back in. Right, so what are the components of the market environment? It's your suppliers, your consumers, your competitors, those people you join in with strategic alliances. It's your trade regulators and your trade unions. So what do we know about the customers? Okay, so customers have the biggest effect on your business because they have the buying power. So you want to do everything to attract them, okay? Because without your customers, your business is not going to exist, right? And when we talk about customers, we have to think about something called the psychological factors, right? And the way I remember what the psychological factors are is I use the acronym MAP, M-A-P. So the M stands for motivation. That is, what drives your customers to motivate them to seek satisfaction? Okay, so if they see an advert that's got that shows a luxury car and a good lifestyle, that kind of motivation is in what drives them to seek that satisfaction. That advert has made them motivated. Their attitudes, okay, these are the emotions which influence your consumer's response to certain ideas or products or services, okay, and this can be influenced by past experiences. So growing up, my father always had VW cars, so my experience of always being in a safe car in a VW has changed my attitude, and so now I will always want to buy a VW because I feel safe in that car. And then the perception, this is how people go about collecting and interpreting the information. So it's influenced by your beliefs. So my perception is that the VW car is safe because my dad always drove them and he never had an accident. So that's my perception. When we talk about customers, we also have to think about the social factors that influence their behavior. And the first one is that of the cultural factors. So in some cultures or religious holidays must be strictly reserved for religious activities only. In terms of family, certain family members influence the decision-making process, such as the oldest son in the household can influence the buying power. I know, for example, my son, he always likes Axe deodorant, so now my younger son will just also buy Axe deodorant because he's seen that within the family. Social class, that is the standing of a group of individuals or families within a society, puts them in a particular social class. I once taught a girl years ago, and I said to her, "Oh, just pop into Jet to go and buy, a white T-shirt that you needed for school." She looked at me and she said, "Oh, ma'am, I'm not a Jet girl or a Pep girl. I will always only go to Edgar's." That was a good 20 years ago, but that showed her social class, where it was perceived that she should go and buy her clothing. And then personal factors. These are things like your age. If you think of the presents that you liked when you were 6 years old versus when you were 16 years old, They're very different. So that age is a personal factor that influences what you buy. Whether you're a male or a female, the kind of lifestyle you enjoy, the kind of music you enjoy, those all influence your things. So when we talk about customers, you must understand that it's about the social factors as well as the psychological factors. Moving very quickly now to suppliers, it's about having your suppliers at the right place, at the right time, at the right price. And you want to try and encourage businesses or your own business one day to buy from other businesses that are BEE compliant, right? Your competitors, right? Competitors sell the same product, okay, or something very similar or a substitute product. So the higher the competition that exists, the better quality that exists between all the businesses. So competition is good. Regulators. These are organizations that have official power to control and to monitor activities that are taking place. Two examples I've got there is the South African Bureau of Standards and also ASA, Advertising Standards Authority. Strategic alliances. This is when two or more businesses work together to allow them to obtain the expertise that they lack. So it's not a joint venture. Okay? It's just a strategic alliance. You see a lot of this happening at garages. So you might have a BP garage that has aligned with Woolworths. So wherever there's a BP garage, there'll be a Woolworths. I know that Shell has BP has aligned with Pick and Pay, so you can get points for your Pick and Pay Smart Shopper card when you fill up at Shell. That's a strategic alliance. Okay, trade unions, right? They are there to protect the labour market and to make sure that the labour markets are being looked after fairly in the labour market. Moving on to the last environment now, the macro environment. Remember, this is the environment outside of the micro environment. It is the biggest environment. The micro environment has absolutely no control over this environment. It's where mega trends take place. So COVID-19 would be an example of an element within the macro environment. It causes long-lasting effects for at least a decade or even longer. And it normally places businesses under high risk, and they have to change in order to deal with what is happening in the macro environment. So the way we remember what is in the macro environment is we go with the acronym PESTLE. P stands for political, right? E stands for economical. I'm going to stop here by the political environment. This is to do with international politics, with new governments coming in, with new laws being put into place, with trade unions wanting to force strikes to happen, right? If we look at E, the E stands for the economic environment. And key words here are inflation, currencies, recession, and economic decline, interest rates. What kind of economy does the country have? If we look at the S stands for social environment, and this is about the demographics, okay? Society. Is urbanization happening? What are the levels of unemployment? How much poverty exists? What about crime? What about HIV, AIDS? All of those issues are seen as social issues. Teenage pregnancies. If we look at the T, that stands for technological. Okay, so it's normally divided into two. It's operation technology, which is the machinery that you need. Okay, are they up to date? Do you need to replace them? Is there latest technology which speeds up the process of production or even just recording of information? And then information technology is the software that is used in order to run your businesses. And these things are pretty expensive and they keep evolving, and so businesses have to update them. The L stands for the legal environment, and in Matric you're going to learn 8 laws that govern businesses. So I've just put a few out there: the BCEA, which is the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the OHSA, the BBBEE, the Labour Relations Act, Consumer Act. By your end of grade 12, you'll be proficient in all of these laws. And the last E is the environmental. Okay, so in terms of your physical environment around you, what are the resources that you can use? What is happening in terms of global warming or carbon emissions? Are we reducing our renewable energy? Are we saving energy? Are we wasting? Are we recycling? So it's about the environment within which the business is operating to make sure that it's still sustainable for the future. So I hope that has given you a quick reminder of the three different environments. Have a good day, everyone.